friends. My name is Miss Adaria, and welcome to the Bridgeton Public Library Storytime. We're so happy you can join us. We're going to go local today, and I'm going to read a couple of stories about things that you can go visit around the area. Are you tired of being home, staring at the same old faces? Well, get yourselves out and go to one of these 3 places, and it's really not too far, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun. So let's go into one of these stories and see what they're talking about. Today we're going to start with the legend of the Cape May diamond. What? That sounds really exciting. This book is by Trinka Hacks Noble, and it's illustrated by E.B. Lewis. Okay, so I'm going to read the preface. About the legend of the Cape May diamond. Some legends are lost forever in the sands of time. Other legends are hidden for ages and never found. For thousands of years, the legend of the Cape May diamond lay locked in the mysterious glow of small pebbles hidden beneath the waters of the old Delaware River. It takes 2,000 years for these small pebbles to complete their travel downriver to the Delaware Bay. But even a journey lasting 2 millennia must one day find its destination. And so, with the passing of time and tides, these small stones and their ancient story would be cast into the glistening sunlight on the shores of Cape May for all to see. So get yourselves down to Cape May and maybe you can find a diamond. What? A diamond? In a time long past, when the Delaware River was called the Wetik, its bountiful waters flowed through the heart of an ancient land called Lenape-Hoking. For 12,000 years, Lenape-Hoking was the ancestral homeland of the Lenape people, the common people. They spoke a common language called Algonquin and lived peacefully in many tribal villages along the banks of their beloved river. And the Lenape lived all over this area of Cumberland County as well. But it was high in the old Appalachian Mountains where the Delaware River was formed by melting glaciers that the legendary story of the Cape May diamond begins. Here the young Delaware rushed and tumbled along, full of energy and promise. But the young river could not tell where it was going. From its high vantage point, it could not see beyond the many twists and turns, hills and bends. Imagine being that young river. What a cool journey. I will send my best daughters downstream to see where my journey leads, said the river, with great hope. Someday they will return to tell me what they have seen. So with its swift currents, the young river began to erode pieces of pure quartz crystal from rich veins in the mountainsides, sending these small stones, these little daughters of the Delaware, on their way. Like dutiful daughters, the little stones did as the river asked. For thousands of years, they journeyed along the river bottom, unseen. Over and over again, the little stones were naturally scoured and burnished and polished by the rough riverbed, and then washed clean by the slow-moving currents until they began to shine like gems. It was as though the river had turned the little stones into sparkling eyes, bright and clear so they could see everything. And boy, what a lot of beauty to see along the Delaware River. To the north and west, the small stones saw how the river watered the vast forests of Lenape-Hoking that rose high into the mountains on either side. From these forests, the Lenape built bark-covered lodges to shield them from the cold winter winds. From large tree trunks, they crafted dugout canoes for travel and trade up and down the Delaware. The rest of the wood was used for wooden bowls and splint baskets, spears, tools, and cooking and for warmth. You know, building fires. Nothing was wasted. The little stones nodded their approval. This will please the river. To the east, the mountains gave way to densely wooded foothills filled with black bear, deer, and wild game. Generations of woodland animals came to drink as the little stones looked on. Again, the Lenape hunters took only what they needed for their people and, with respect, gave thanks to the animal's spirit. "This will please the river," nodded the little stones. Look how beautiful that is in the woods with the rocks and the deer coming down to get a drink. I'm sure there's so many other creatures in that woods that we just can't see. Further downriver, in early spring, the little stones observed the running of the shad, the salmon, and the herring as they traveled upstream to their spawning grounds. With nets, weirs, and spears, the Lenape caught and dried out only what they needed to replenish their winter food supplies so their people would not go hungry. Again, the little stones nodded. "This will please the river." See the little sparkling stones looking at them? Does anybody know what a weir is? A weir is when you make an area in the river where fish swim into that they can't really get out. So it's kind of like a trap for the fish, so they can gather a lot of fish at one time so they can have for dinner and dry out for later. That's what a weir is. Usually happens in smaller streams and creeks, but I guess they did it in the Delaware too. As the river moved south through the heart of Lenapehoking, it slowed and widened, nourishing fertile plains where in summer the Lenape cultivated lush gardens, growing maize, beans, squash, pumpkins, and sunflowers. Do you know what maize is? It's a kind of corn. In the fall, they gathered their crops and hung them to dry in the warm autumn sun. Once more, the little stones nodded. "This will please the river." Now the river had widened even more where the plains of the Lenapehoking rolled gently down to the great salt ocean. Here on the sandy white beaches, bands of Lenape would gather in summer to collect shellfish, mussels, and clams. From the inside of clamshells, they made purple and silvery white beads called wampum, which they used for currency and trade. See how pretty the inside of some of these shells look? Mussel shells, the clam shell. The Lenape of the South, the Unami, or downriver people, generously traded with the Lenape of the North, the Munsee, or the people from Minisink, the stony place. Everyone benefited. Still again, the little stones nodded. "This will please the river." But then something changed. What changed? What do you think changed? We need something change music. Dun, dun, dun. The little stones were cast into a wide bay, a great wide bay. The Delaware Bay, that's what we call it. The water became murky and harsh and salty. Powerful tides from the great salt ocean began to push and pull the little stones rapidly toward the mouth of the bay. The little daughters of the Delaware resisted because they did not want to leave their river and be swept out to sea, never to be seen again. See our little stones there? So do you know what was happening there? The river was coming down into the bay and it was mixing with the ocean water. So the tides would come in, mix with the water, and that's what forms our Delaware Bay. And I'm sure you've been to some of the beaches along the Delaware Bay. Beautiful place. But all was not lost. It just so happened that a band of Lenape called the Ketchamichi lived on this very peninsula of land, and like many summers before, they were out gathering shellfish along the sandy shore. No one knows for sure who was the first person to find one of these precious daughters of the Delaware glistening like teardrops in the sand. Perhaps it was a young Ketchamichi boy named Mahehumund, or the one who gathers things. So now they're in Cape May along the beach. True to his name, one who gathers things would have been combing the beach for hours, collecting pretty stones and shells to add to his deerskin pouch. Children were prized by the Lenape and allowed to play and explore freely. But even this little boy, called One Who Gathers Things, would have known that this precious stone was sacred, because the Lenape children were taught by their elders that all things have living spirits called Manituak, even a stone. With great excitement, One Who Gathers Things would have to race to the sachem, the tribe's wise chief and leader, with this rare stone clutched in his hand. I wonder what they look like. I want to go find one. Don't you? When the sachem held up this translucent stone to the sun, that means you could see through it. It was so clear that he could see right through it. To be able to see through a stone gave it great meaning and power. So the wise sachem proclaimed that this precious stone would never be used for wampum, but would have a higher purpose. And so the Lenape people made the sacred stone the symbol of loyalty and lasting friendship. Because a true friend is a trusted friend with nothing to hide, just like this rare and translucent stone. And so the Lenape people made this, I just read that. Over the centuries, the largest of these sacred stones were exchanged to seal the bonds of loyalty and friendship among the many Lenape tribes up and down the Delaware River, including this area. But things would soon change in Lenape-Hoking. What do you think they're going to change? What's going to change? I don't want things to change. Oh, what's that? What's that? Looks like a ship to me. In 1621, a Dutch explorer named Cornelius Jacobson May sailed into the bay and named the peninsula Cape May and the narrow tip Cape May Point. Other European settlers followed, including the Dutch, the Swedes, and lastly the English, who altered the spelling to Cape May. So M-E-Y to M-A-Y. The Lenape called these European settlers Shwanak, the salty people, because they came from the Great Salt Ocean and were white as sea foam. The Europeans called the Lenape the river people, and when the English named the Delaware River after the first colonial governor of Virginia, Sir Thomas West, Lord Delaware, the Lenape became known as the Delaware too. But they were really the Lenape. One of the last known exchanges of the sacred stone between the Lenape happened in the year 1735. At a great council, the Quechua-Michi tribe decided to move farther inland away from the European settlers, but their chief, King Nummi, stayed behind. That's a great name, isn't it? King Nummi. Before they left, the Quechua-Michi tribe presented King Nummi with a large, flawless stone to pledge their enduring loyalty and friendship to him. I think that was King Nummi right there. What a great gift they gave to him. In the old whaling days of New Jersey, King Nummi presented this stone to an early settler named Christopher Leeming to seal their friendship. Leeming had the stone sent to Amsterdam, where it was polished, cut, and faceted into a diamond. And so this sacred stone of the Lenape became known as the Cape May diamond. Just like the precious daughters of the Delaware, those little pieces of quartz that traveled all the way down the river, now called Cape May diamonds, King Nummi, the last great chief of the Quechua-Michi, did not want to leave his beloved homeland. It is believed to be buried in Nummi Town. Where is Nummi Town? I want to go there. Will you meet me at Nummi Town? Cape May continued to flourish, becoming a popular seaside resort. It was referred to as the Summer White House, as many early presidents spent their summer there. In 1860s, the little town of Cape May became a seaside gem with its many beautiful Victorian summer homes and a picturesque lighthouse on Cape May Point. It was in this Victorian era that Cape May diamond became very popular. Many summer visitors comb the beaches for hours, searching for these precious little stones. To this very day, on the Delaware River is sending these little stones on their long journey to Cape May. So you can still find the Cape May diamonds along the Delaware Bay beaches, glistening like tears in the shallow waves, because they never got to go tell the river of its beautiful journey. But when a Cape May diamond is given as a gift to seal the lasting bonds of true friendship, these little sparkling daughters of the Delaware will still be nodding their approval. Do you see those two little boys? I think one is handing the other one of the Cape May diamonds. And what do they have to say? This will please the river. Wow, what a beautiful story. And I really love the illustrations too. Have you ever been to that lighthouse in Cape May? I have. It's a very pretty place. So we're going to tell one more story, a local story. And this one is all about Captain McGee and the East Point Lighthouse. There's a theme here. It's local and it's about lighthouses and diamonds. And we might read, if we have some time, we might read the story of Bridgeton's Nail House. But what if we don't get to that? We'll definitely read that one next time. So this is Captain McGee and the East Point Lighthouse by Doris E. Jargowski. Please excuse me if I'm horribly mispronouncing your name. So let's see. This is going to be kind of like more of a rhythmic poem rather than a story. So it'll have a definite flow and beat to it because this is how she wrote it. Gather round, children, and listen to me while I'll tell you the tale of Captain McGee. The captain, he was a quiet man, and his love for the sea kept him off of the land. Why, even his house on 12 pilings sat at the mouth of the river like a welcome mat. In the cool of the evening, he would sit and rock by his trusty vessel moored by the dock. Wow, doesn't that look like a nice place to chill out? The Bonnie Lee. As each wave rolled back from lapping the shore, he'd doze, then wake and rock some more. As another wave rose to slap the shore, oh, what a lullaby to endure. And a wisp of a pup that he got from a friend. See that little pup sitting down there by his feet? Lay by his side till the evening's end. Let me just straighten this book out a little bit. You see that nice picture? Isn't that pretty? It's a great place to chill out, right by the water. Early one morning, with his pup by his side, he set sail for the sea on the ebbing tide. Unaware of his fate on that day, or the turn of the tide in his life on the bay. For his thoughts were fixed far beyond the sea on his recent bride, named Bonnie Lee. Where did we see that name before? Bonnie Lee. That's right. It was on the boat. Some people name boats after their sweethearts, their friends, their moms. A beautiful girl with eyes of blue, but of her illness he never knew. Just a wisp of a girl with a pup by her side, and it wasn't a week when sweet Bonnie Lee died. Captain looked at the pup, and then he sighed. Then he revved up the engine to challenge the tide. He sailed past East Point Light, still shining bright, and turned away from Egg Island on his right. Now the mackerel sky at the crack of dawn was the mirror image of the sea he was on, and just when he felt so all alone, he remembered the pup and threw him a bone. Captain looked at the thunderhead starting to form, and he said to the pup, "They're brewing a storm." "No, a storm!" Oh. Another knot to the engine's speed. In its hesitation he did not heed, and when the sea began to churn, the captain sailed on, refusing to turn. When the pup placed the vessel bow to stern, wondering what lesson he needed to learn. Poor little pup. Just when the wind had reached her peak, those clouds opened up and began to leak. Can you see the rain? It looks like streams of string coming down from the sky. but it's actually rain. The pup continued his anxious pace until the sea slapped him in the face. The pup was scared. He shivered and shook, curled up in a ball, and at the captain did look. He's saying, "Why are we out here? Can we go back home now?" The captain gave an angry shout and tried to turn the vessel about. He grabbed the wheel with all his might. For the wind and rain and current he now had to fight. But the tide was against him, and so was his fate. He traveled too far in his anger and hate, recanting his wish to join his mate. He hoped against hope that it wasn't too late, but the wind just laughed and waved her hand, blowing them further away from land. Oh no, what's going to happen to them? I'm so worried. In desperation, the captain dropped to his knees, looked toward heaven, and cried, "Dear God, please, you know that I miss my sweet Bonnie Lee, but look at this pup. He has no one but me." Well, what happened next was a total surprise, for the captain and pup both grew in size. What? The captain now stood over 10 feet tall, and he stayed the helm to fight the squall. How did this happen? I don't understand. How big did the pup get? That's what I'm wondering. And when the rudder got damaged by hail, the pup manned the stern and used his tail. With one last chug, the engine did fail, so with just 2 fingers, Captain hoisted the sail. Took one deep breath and then he blew. A swifter sail he never knew. They made quite a team. When East Point Lighthouse came in sight, Captain took out his bootlace and looped it tight. Then, just like a cowboy in a rodeo, he twirled it over his head and he gave it a throw. Round East Point Lighthouse it took hold. Then the pup, who was now brave and bold, and apparently about 7 feet tall, fearing not the sea beneath, grabbed that line between his teeth. I think this is what is known as a tall tale. With just one yank, they reached the coast, then used the lighthouse as a mooring post. The townsfolk cheered and shouted a toast. "Hooray for the captain, and his pup is the most!" Now, if it sounds like I'm bragging, it may well be. For you see, my children, I'm Captain McGee. Arr! Hi, folks. This is the craft portion of our story time. I hope you enjoy. It's very simple, but very cute stuff. I'm going to show you the finished product first, and then I'll show you the components that you're going to need to put it together. And I hope you have some fun, because this is definitely fun. This is a turtle. Look how cute he is. Oh, a little turtle. Oh. So adorable. Okay, so we're going to put him aside for a second, and I'm going to bring in the components that you're going to need to make the craft. So this is tissue paper. You don't have to have 3 colors if you don't. Any green will work, because we're trying to get the tissue paper to sort of replicate the plates that are on top of a turtle's back, or his shell. And we're using this paper plate as his actual shell, and that's where we're going to build the turtle from. So what you're also going to need is a head, 2 front feet, 2 back feet, and a little tail. You're also going to need a pair of scissors, some glue, a glue stick, and a magic marker, or a crayon. And to get the shapes right, you're going to need a pencil. What I would normally do is have a green piece of construction paper in, and then I draw the shape, and then I cut it out. Maybe one of your adults can help you with that. But I've cut everything out already for this one to make it a little easier. So the first thing that we're going to start with is we're going to glue the pieces of his back onto the shell which is the paper plate. And please notice that I've turned it over. So this is the back of the paper plate, so it resembles a turtle shell. And you could do this design however you want. You could put on as many or as few pieces of tissue paper and in whatever order you want. You don't have to have multicolored, you could do just one color. So we'll just get started by doing one of these. And I like to do it on another piece of paper so that we don't get glue stick on your table or whatever surface that you're working on. And there you go. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to get the tissue paper completely glued on. It actually looks a little more natural and textured if you leave some of the paper up off of the plate. And then we can get started on the body. Now what I like to do before I put the feet, tail, and head on is actually draw something. So maybe you want to make a little eyeball and a little smile. You could even give them a little nose if you want to. And the same thing with the feet, because they do have claws at the end of their feet so they can get around. If you know anything about turtles. So something like that. And then we turn the plate over, and you need to make sure that the claws and the face are all this way so that you could see it when you turn it back over. So you put a little bit of glue right here on the bottom. And make sure you could see that on the other side. Looks good. And you know, we're doing like 10 and 2 o'clock, 5 and 8 o'clock, I guess, and 12 and 6 if you're going to look at it like that. Remember to put the glue on the side where the writing or drawing is. And it's just going to take a minute for those to set. So you might want to set them aside for a while this is drying. And then put some on his head. Put a little more on his head because it's a bigger piece of paper that has to stick to the plate. First what I like to do is I spread the 2 feet and in the front apart a little bit wider than the back feet so you don't crowd the head. You have enough room to put his head. We're assuming that it's a male tortoise, of course. Turtle. Okay, so just give it a little more room for the head. Make sure you could see all the claws of the feet. That looks good. And now the head. And I'm just turning just so I can give it a little measure. You can move it around to see what looks good. And finally, last but not least, his cute little tail. And it doesn't matter which side you glue it on because there's no drawing on it, so I can't mess that up. I mean, I probably could, but I'm gonna try not to. And take his little tail, sticks out. Just press down on all of these things. Make sure they're gonna stick. If there's a little extra glue, it's okay. You can wipe it off if you want to. And there's your turtle. Isn't he cute? Thank you. I hope you have fun with that craft.